Hello, I am Uncle Slam, and this is my second submission for SGDQ 2019. This is Pac-Man Adventures in Time, any percent on easy difficulty. With that said, let's just jump into it. Okay, so right off the bat, I initiated the first trick in the run. This is actually the second maze in the game, because you saw there was a cutscene that I skipped. The way this game is coded is that there are two buttons that can skip any of the cutscenes. Those are escape and the right arrow key. However, the game designers didn't consider what would happen if you pressed both of them at once. And what that does is, it not only skips the cutscene, but it will also skip whatever bit of gameplay comes immediately after it. So since the first maze in the game came after that cutscene, I was able to completely bypass it, so that saves like 33 or 34 seconds just by doing that. However, skipping mazes in that manner comes with a side effect, and that is the game crashing like it did just there. But it's no big deal because I can easily hop back into the run, and that only takes like 10 seconds. So considering I skipped a maze that takes over 30 seconds to complete, I save well over 20 seconds by activating the glitch. The glitch has other side effects that we'll see later on that are much more humorous, so stay tuned for that. Aside from that, this game functions gameplay-wise a lot like the traditional arcade-style Pac-Man, in that there are 45 mazes in this game, 9 of which we skip utilizing the glitch. And to complete each one, Pac-Man needs to eat all of the dots. So most of the gameplay is just me trying to route around these mazes in order to eat the dots as quickly as possible. Now this game also comes with minigames like this one. Most of the ones you'll see are chase minigames that will share the same style as that one I just lost. Fortunately, this game doesn't care if you win or lose minigames, it just cares that you've completed it. So I'll be losing, hopefully, all of the minigames you see in this run. We are able to utilize the glitch, the cutscene glitch, to skip most of the minigames, and ideally we skip 12 out of 16 of them. However, since the glitch I need to use is frame perfect, you'll probably see a few minigames that aren't supposed to be in the run here and there, but for the most part, it's no big deal. I should also note that if we do intentionally not skip any of the minigames, that's because they will also crash the game the next time we beat a maze, and that does end up being slower than if we just play out the minigame. So I'll be sure to point that out when that happens. This maze utilizes cycles in that if you look at the top of this map, you can see that there are two boulders that come down in gradual intervals, and I'm able to route around this maze in such a way that I don't have to worry about if Pac-Man gets hit or not. Another thing about this game that I should probably note is Pac-Man's ability to jump. You can see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen that there is a pink bar, and that is his jump gauge. So that will deplete, like it just did, whenever Pac-Man jumps, and gradually replenish over time. Usually takes about 2 seconds, I think. So you can utilize that to... Okay, I missed that skip, so I'll just back out of the game and get back into it, try to get it again. And I got it, and I skipped the minigame too, so that's really good. But anyway, regarding the jump mechanic, you can use that to jump over any ghosts and most obstacles. However, you also will jump over any pellets along the way. So you do need to use it strategically. For example, a lot of the time you'll see me jump uphill, and that reduces, you'll see right here, Pac-Man's running uphill, but he goes uphill a little slower than if he's on level ground. So I use that to mitigate the time lost by him slowing down. I will, if he's going downhill like that though, try to stay on the ground as much as possible. So there's that. And we get our second game crash. No big deal, we'll just jump back into it. And you'll also notice that, I don't remember if I explained it or not, but whenever Pac-Man eats a ghost, much like in the original Pac-Man, the game will pause for half a second to show you the points you've accumulated by eating that ghost. And half a second time loss isn't that bad, really, but over the course of the run, like say you eat 30 different ghosts, that's 15 seconds added to the run in total. So it will add up, and we do want to hopefully eat as few ghosts as possible in order to reduce that time loss. So this maze was pretty good. Those snakes, if they bite Pac-Man, by the way, you'll see them in the next maze too. But if they bite Pac-Man, they won't kill him, it'll only be like a minor stun. So we will lose like anywhere from half a second to a full second when they bite him. So it's not a huge deal if that happens, but we do want to avoid it as much as possible, so I do route out these mazes to hopefully avoid the snakes. Yeah, these elevators can be a little problematic if a ghost beats you to one, because then you have to wait for it to lower again, and it's not a fun time. So unfortunately I couldn't beat that snake, so go past it, not a huge problem. So I'm gonna try to skip another minigame here, see if I can handle it. Okay, and I got it, good. Yeah, you might be able to hear it now, but the minigame music, also, since we didn't hit the trigger for finishing the minigame, the game still thinks that the minigame's playing, so the music for it plays while the normal maze music is playing. So that's happening. Yeah, that is another side effect to utilizing the glitch. It's not the one I was talking about earlier, there's an even better one later. So in about 5 mazes from now you should see it, and I promise you it's well worth it. And just like that was a pretty clean maze. Okay, and again I skipped a maze and minigame right off the bat there, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, in some cases you can skip a maze and then skip a minigame right away, because since it skips the maze, it'll just start playing the next minigame, and all of the minigames in the in this game are immediately preceded by a cutscene, which is why we're able to skip any of the minigames in this game by utilizing the glitch. However, there are some, I mentioned before how there are some minigames that are guaranteed to crash the game if we skip them. So if, say, I skip a maze and then it gives me the opportunity to skip a minigame, there are some minigames where if I don't skip them, the game will crash in the minigame before I have the chance to save, and I'll need to redo the maze skip I did before. Hopefully that makes sense, if not, don't worry about it. But this is the first 3D maze in the game. So it's pretty basic, it's just on a cylinder. And you might have noticed before how I was using a top-down camera most of the time. That's mostly just so I could see where all the dots were and where all the obstacles were at any given time. However, I can't use that on the 3D mazes because you can't really get a top-down view of a 3D surface. That's just not how spatial orientation works. So for the most part, you're just going to have to deal with this camera. But there aren't that many 3D mazes, so it's not that bad. I just hope you don't get motion sickness. So this is the second minigame we don't want to skip. We intentionally lose it. And here there are a bunch of miniature slopes scattered around this maze. It's kind of hard to see with the top-down camera, especially if you're not familiar with the maze. But I've done it so often I know where all the slopes are, so like right there I went down a slope and I jumped back up it. So yeah, little minor time saves like that are pretty... I don't want to say they're really crucial to the run, but they do help in the long run. And we want as much time save as we can get. Yeah, fun thing about those teeter-totters, if you go over them and flip them while Ghost is on the other end, they'll get shot up into the air and end up having to respawn. So nice little thing the developers put in. So this maze is really unique in that it's the only one where Pac-Man can't jump. So in the upper right corner of the screen you'll see a blue bar. That is the gravity boot gauge. So Pac-Man is wearing a pair of gravity boots that let him stick to the sides of the maze like this. And they only replenish when we reach the top of the maze, so you'll see right here it fills right back up once we hit the top. if it runs out while Pac-Man is on the side of the maze, he will plummet to his death and respawn back at the start. We try not to let that happen. It usually doesn't. But the way it's routed out, there's a pretty generous window. And just like that, pretty clean, we're out of there, and here we see the most fun side effect of the glitch. So right now Pac-Man is riding a pig that is also Pac-Man. The main reason this happens is we skipped a minigame where Pac-Man is riding a pig, but since we never actually beat the minigame, the flag never got triggered to unload the sprite used for the minigame. So in addition to having Pac-Man's normal sprite for this maze, it's loading the sprite used in the minigame. So the two kind of stack on top of each other to form this monstrosity. There are other instances like that later in the run, but this is the first one we'll see. And this is, in my opinion, the thing that makes this the best category to run of this game. But it still crashes when that happens, so... But it is still faster, so we take it. Here we've got another 3D maze. This one's based off a giant mushroom, so... Clearly they took inspiration from Mario when making this game. I also find it kind of funny that this is the medieval-themed portion of the maze, or of the game. Even though it doesn't really have anything to do with medieval times, I guess. But it is what it is. So yeah, I would say if you do have motion sickness, look on the horizon, but since that moves too, it probably won't help. So, sorry about that. So just like that, we're done. And here you see the two jousters on the top of the screen. Those are actually ghosts, but even if we eat a power pellet, they don't turn blue, and they will still kill Pac-Man. So we do still want to avoid them. But since we're able to jump over them, they're hardly an issue. And coming up next, we're skipping another minigame. In the no skips category that doesn't utilize the glitch. It's normally it's one of the most fun minigames casually because it's a giant shooting gallery. However, since it runs out as soon as we run out of ammo, we pretty much mash the shoot button until we run out. So it goes from becoming one of the most fun minigames in the run to I sadly missed it, but it's fine. Yeah, see here we just smash until we run out of ammo, so... Unfortunately not as fun in the speedrun. Yeah, here you'll notice that in the upper right hand corner of the screen there's a timer. If that runs out in this maze, an unskippable cutscene plays where the dragon in the middle wakes up, burns Pac-Man alive, and we lose a life. In addition to that, when we respawn we have much less time to complete the maze. But since this is a speedrun, I don't think the timer even goes to the halfway point. So, we do not have to worry about it whatsoever. And coming up here, we're going back to Egyptian times. I missed the skip, so we'll just try to get it again. Miss it again. Yeah, the fortunate thing is, if you miss the trick, you can easily just get out of the game and go back into it, since we save after every maze. In the harder difficulties, so normal and hard mode, you only get to skip after so many mazes. Oh, unfortunately I hit the spikes there. Yeah, the spikes in this maze, they will stun Pac-Man a little bit. They don't kill him, fortunately, so they're kind of like the snakes from earlier mazes. So it's not the biggest deal if we hit them, but we do want to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah, you'll also see that there are power pellets that spawn on top of the spikes in this maze as a result of the glitch. They're not actually there, so Pac-Man doesn't need to eat them. They're just kind of there visually. I have no idea why, but it's funny. Here we have the spikes as well as a mechanic we would have seen in the maze we skipped earlier. So you'll see that there are red and green tiles at the top of the maze. If I have Pac-Man run over them, so like that, the two platforms in the corners will come down, allowing us to eat the power pellets that are on top. We do have limited time to reach them, however, so we do want to hustle there as quickly as possible once we go over the first tiles. So that leads to some fun routing. Okay, and this maze is one of the coolest ones in the run. So what the developers intend you to do is, so those snakes will kill Pac-Man if he tries to go past them. However, there's a flute at the bottom of the maze you can see that put them in their baskets for a limited amount of time. And what the designers wanted you to do was take 2 or more trips in order to eat all the pellets in the colored section. However, with really good ghost patterns and good timing on your part, you're actually able to enter and exit 2 of the sections and then enter the 3rd one before the snakes come back out of their baskets. And doing that instead of making multiple trips saves over like 15 seconds, I want to say. And this route was found by PinballWiz45B, another really good runner at this game. And fortunately, I got it, so that's really awesome. Yeah, right there we take an intentional death abuse, but it's still much, much better than taking the long way. Especially considering right now we have 5 lives to spare, so I'm really glad I got to show that off. And coming up next we have our 3rd minigame that we intentionally try not to skip, and all it is Indiana Jones. Except Indiana Jones actually makes that alive, so there's that. This is a 3D maze that's a little more intricate than the last ones we've seen, in that it also has the spikes. And those also operate on their own cycles, so I'll route this in such a way where I can grab the pellets off of the spikes without actually getting hit. And again, they won't kill Pac-Man, it's just a mild hindrance if he hits them. So this is going pretty well so far. Yeah, probably the most unfortunate part about the 3D mazes is the fact that I can't tell where the ghosts are all the time. So I do need to be a little more careful that they don't ambush me like that. Oh, that was unfortunate. I should be able to make up for it here. Yeah, that wasn't bad. Awesome. So we got out of there almost scot-free. Okay, so I missed that cutscene glitch. Missed it again. Yeah. Alright, I skipped the minigame too. Yeah, like I said, it is a frame-perfect trick, so it's not a guarantee any given time, but when you do get it first try, it is really satisfying. In this maze, we've got that tumbleweed, which will chase Pac-Man around. However, even though it isn't particularly, it's not directly affected by the power pellets, which turn the ghosts blue, so it will still bonk Pac-Man if he hits it. However, it will tend to stay away from Pac-Man whenever one of the power pellets is activated. It didn't then for some reason, but it typically does. So you can use that to your advantage. And here we get another crash. Reopen the game. And this is a maze where, even though I can use the top-down view, I elect not to most of the time because, as you can see there, it's a larger maze, so it causes just a little bit of input lag if I utilize the top-down perspective. It's not a huge problem, but it's enough of a problem where I prefer just use this camera instead until I get to the upper section. So this one also has some elevators, nothing too special about it. I guess one nice thing about it is the fact that when you do get into the upper section, there's a clear-cut path, which you'll see in a second here. Yeah, so right here you can tell like there's a nice easy path from one end to the other, and you don't have to worry about going around every single table to collect the pellets. So it's pretty cool that the game designers left that in. Clyde giving me a bit of grief there. And I might have to maneuver around Inky. Nope, he's cooperating, so that's awesome. Now this maze is pretty cool because there's a train that will come through gradually throughout the course of the maze. And you can see right there the gates all closed before it came along. So if Pac-Man or the Ghost get caught on the tracks when they lower, you pretty much are stuck there until the train comes by, and it is almost guaranteed to kill you, unless you're on the very edge. So I have this routed to where I reach the, let's see here, the last 6 pellets are going to be on the tracks, and I reach the gates just before they're about to open. So that's awesome. And here we skip this cutscene, and it leads to another fun little side effect similar to the pig. So obviously there are 2 big problems here. 1, there are 2 Pac-Mans again. 2, one of them is riding a pushcart, and that's basically because the minigame we just skipped has Pac-Man pushing a pushcart. That minigame specifically is a 30-second or so button masher, and since it only takes about 10 to 12 seconds to reboot the game up after it crashes, you do save a good amount of time by skipping it. And we get to see this, which is always a pleasure. And that's awesome. So after this, we're gonna see, in my opinion, the worst maze in the speedrun. Well, after we crash, of course, but... Oh, hello. So... What's the skip? Yeah, so this is Banquet Bash, and if you'll notice here that there are tables indicated by the blue tablecloths, Pinky also is carrying a tray around. So basically, if she runs over any of the tables and Pac-Man has eaten any of the dots on those tables, she will replace them, unless she is blue. So like right there she went over a table but didn't replace any of the dots. And what that basically means is you can route this maze perfectly and eat all of the dots in like a really fast manner. However, if Pinky places down any dots that you've already eaten, that means you have to backtrack and re-eat them. So Pinky can make you lose up to like half a minute on this maze alone if she doesn't decide to cooperate. But fortunately she's doing okay here, so that's nice to see. Alright, and she doesn't place down a single one. That's awesome. But of course the game crashes again, so... Okay, and here we're in Treasure Vaults, and it looks like I should be able to use the top-down camera here, but if I do, it gives me this lovely sound effect. So that basically just indicates that I'm not able to use the top-down camera. And you'll see why in a second. So I want to point you to the upper right portion of the screen where it has a bunch of colored dots. Those are indicative of the different floor tiles you'll see, so blue on the right and red on the left. And they're counting down how many dots I still need to collect on that maze before a new part of the maze opens up. So you'll see right here, once I complete the red part of the maze, this section opens up. And because that technically makes this a 3D maze, I'm not able to use the top-down camera. So it's a little unfortunate, but it is whatever. But just like that, we are cleanly out of here. This maze is Dark Dungeons, and it follows the same rule as the train maze we saw earlier, in that there are several different miniature mazes linked together. So you saw in the train level there were 4 different train cars I had to traverse, and before I could reach the next one I had to clear out the one before it. And this one functions pretty much the same way. So there are 3 different portions to the dungeons. First blue, then red, and then green. So right here, collect the last of those, the gate opens up, and I'm able to come in here. But unfortunately, with these segmented mazes, I'm not able to use the top-down camera. I'm not exactly sure why, but you'll learn to live with it. Yeah, this game's pretty fun. It has a good amount of variety in the mazes, so it never really feels stale. Yeah, the cool thing about this green section is that since I don't have to worry about going to the next maze, I don't have to worry about finishing the dot collection at the top of the screen, so I can use a little bit of a different route for this part compared to the first two parts. And after this maze, we're going to have another minigame I try to skip. If I don't skip it, it's a very, very minor time loss. I think it only takes maybe, I don't know, 6 seconds to beat. Okay, but I did get it, so we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, this maze, there are 2 cannons at the top of the screen. They'll shoot lethal cannonballs, so we don't want to get hit by them. Yeah, you notice there that they can also kill the ghosts. There are some obstacles in this game that will affect the ghosts, and some that won't. Fortunately, the cannonballs are some of those obstacles. But stuff like the snakes we saw earlier won't kill the ghosts. It's kind of weird how it works out. And then just as a reference, you can see here that the this maze is based off a roof, so the middle portion is elevated, and the outer portions are a little bit lower. So just a few slopes I need to account for when traversing this maze. And that went pretty well. Okay, want to skip this maze, hopefully. Okay, sweet. And here's another side effect, where we're on a raft, but we're also in a boat. For reasons. Because I guess Pac-Man wanted to be in a boat instead of just having life preserver if it gets knocked off. I don't know. But that said, this is a really basic maze. Funny thing is, it's actually modeled after the very first maze in this game. But since we didn't get to see it, this is technically the first time we're seeing this pattern. What's also cool about it is that it's modeled after the maze in the original arcade Pac-Man. So that's kind of a nice throwback. So after we crash the game again, this maze is entirely underwater. So in the upper right hand corner of the screen you see an air meter. And that will replenish the more Pac-Man eats dots. And since I'm doing that most of the time anyway, we hardly ever have to worry about him running out of air. So the dots in this maze function a lot like coins do in Super Mario 64. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, another funny thing about this maze is that it's literally the same as the last maze we did, it's just rotated to the right 90 degrees. So, very original game design. And yeah, this maze introduces the minecart mechanics. And minecart mechanics are terrible, for one main reason. There are 2 things that the minecarts do. One of them is more applicable only to casual playing. So whenever you make a turn, like here, when you zigzag like that, the game will automatically make the turns for you, so you save an input, but that doesn't really affect the speedrun that much. An aspect that does affect the speedrun, however, is the fact that you aren't able to turn around in the minecart unless you run into a T intersection. So if you're coming up on a ghost that's headed your way, you can't just back up to avoid hitting it. You actually need to either jump over it or reroute yourself, so right there I could not back up to avoid hitting Clyde. That's not too much of an issue because I was almost done with the maze anyway, and I can collect dots right off the bat almost. So, let's see here. There I was able to skip. Oh, hello. Skip another minigame. That's the longest in the game, so that's one I really wanted to make sure I skipped. But this maze is entirely minecart mechanics, so it's not very fun. But it's routed really well at this point, so it's not a huge deal. Yeah, making sure you have this maze routed well is pretty critical to the speedrun. So right there, make sure I jump over Pinky. Yeah, this is going pretty well so far. And yes, the minigame music is still playing in the background since I never hit the flag to end the minigame. So right here, just moving around, collecting the dots up here. And just like that, we're out of the Wild West, and we're jumping into the future after the game crashes. Yeah, the main reason the game crashes there is because of the minigame I skipped. Alright, so here, good, we skipped the maze, and we skipped the minigame, so that's awesome. I've skipped most of the minigames first try, so that's a really good sign. Yeah, here you've got these electrical discharges. They will only stun Pac-Man, they won't kill him, so it's not a huge deal if he gets hit, but I'd still rather not get hit by them if I can help it. Jump over that section there. And coming up, the game will crash one more time, and hopefully that will be the last time we see a crash in the run, so rejoice for that. And this is the second to last 3D maze, and it also has these electrical discharges that go off gradually. But I know when it's safe to go over them to collect the pack dots that are on top of them, so they don't really cause an issue. So yeah, like I said, second to last 3D maze, so we're almost through it. We actually only have 2 more mazes after this, so pretty good run overall, I'd say. Alright, oh, that was unfortunate. But luckily enough, I spawn right here, so it's not that bad. So here we've got the last minigame that we intentionally don't try to skip. And this is, in my opinion, one of the coolest mazes in the entire game. So it functions a lot like the maze we saw before, where you had to collect a certain number of pellets on each side of the maze before another part would open up. So here it's based on a rocket, so you can kind of see in the background that there are 2 winds that need to be lowered. So once I eat the last of these tiles, that section comes down. And you can actually jump onto them before they come all the way down. So the traversable part of the maze comes down before it does visually. So it does look pretty cool. And these lightning bolts actually will kill Pac-Man, so we really don't want to hit them, but they're on a constant up and down cycle, so they're not going to turn around on us at random, so that's pretty nice. Okay, here I missed the skip for this minigame, but it's fine, because we finish it really quickly. And this is the last maze in the game. It is 3D, but it also has 3 different parts to it. So this is the first one. It only has Blinky and Clyde on it. The next section will add Pinky, and the section after that will add Inky. So here we only have to worry about 2 ghosts right now. Once we move on to the next part, now we have to worry about 3, and I immediately eat Pinky, so that was pretty cool. Sometimes if the power pellet wears off before you reach it, Pinky can be there just waiting to kill you, and there's not really anything you can do about it, so just something you have to deal with. That's fine. Yeah, I can afford to die 1 more time, so it's not a huge deal. And it looks like this is the run. Alright, and that's time, actually. So, yeah, all in all, I would call that a pretty solid run. I'd say a safe estimate for this would be 40 minutes, but I feel pretty confident doing it in 39 or less. So, with all that said and done, thank you very much for your consideration into putting this in SGDQ. Thank you for sitting through this whole run. I hope you enjoyed it. And with that said, have a good day. Take it easy.